Hello, everyone. This is the Uncharted Case Files After Chat for January 31st, the last day of the month, of the first month of the year, and it has been quite an active year so far. So let's get right on in. I know Ryan covered a lot of the stuff, and I've heard a few things on that I actually want to kind of ask about tonight, because one of them I was a little bit surprised by. But I'm going to bring Ryan on in. He can say hi. Hopefully we've got some people from Facebook that have followed us over here. And, well, we started it pretty quick. Normally we get a little bit of a leeway, but hopefully they followed over pretty fast. I know
Right.
Alex Stead was posting actually the link to it in the chat on Facebook as well.
I'm just about to post it too. So
Yeah.
but yeah. So we're here. Yeah, I usually start the video chat 5 minutes early. I give everyone a chance to hop on, and then yeah.
Yeah, really about the same here. This is kind of the like it's called. It's an after chat. It's not really a real formal kind of thing. If we go, however, depending on the time limit or when everything really gets rolling or whatever, it's just kind of go with the flow.
Info. Can I see the chat? Oh, yeah, I can see the chat. No messages yet.
Yeah.
Chime in if you guys are listening. If not, then Joel and I are just going to chat.
Well, I tell you, there was one thing that you mentioned in the video tonight that actually kind of surprised me a little bit. Was the what is the I guess it's the Airbnb kind of rental of a haunted house. And I mean, not actually. It looked like, what was it, 125 a night?
Yeah, it was actually not that bad.
No, actually, that was actually pretty good. So, that's the first I've ever seen of that. Have you heard of anything else like that before? I mean, that's, like I said, it's kind of a...
No, it's. I think it's unique on its own. It's right down the street. I messaged them to let them know the kind of like what we do and what and maybe we can help get that going. Because that's actually a great idea. I've heard so many stories about it being haunted. Like I said, my wife Priscilla, like her grandparents used to own that, so there's even stories growing up, that were interesting, and it's. No, it's definitely new. Definitely new.
And Alex Studd has jumped into the chat. Good evening.
Good evening, Alex.
He was ready to go. Glad, and thank you for posting the link. That's something I actually forgot to post it earlier. I was going to do it like at the beginning, the middle, and the end. I've actually been watching since a few minutes after 5.
Yeah, no worries.
Or 5
5
my time. I'm West Coast.
5. Right. All right, man. So what do you want to talk about, Alex? Anything? Since you're here?
Yeah, this is really the Q&A discussion part, because if you're watching on Facebook, sometimes there's a lot of chat, a lot of messages coming back and forth on that, and it's kind of hard to keep track. And especially the more people watching, the harder it is to keep track.
So, Alex,
I didn't know if you got the chat up there.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Yes.
Have you ever looked into
investigating?
That's
your job.
Yeah, the Muskogee Center in Gravenhurst.
Gravenhurst.
Yeah.
So, have I ever looked into the Muskoka Center? No. You know what? The Muskoka Center is not too far away, and I do believe we've talked about that before, Alex. I think so. Let me just look it up. Supervised access. So it's a mental health facility, I believe. Yeah, so the Muskoka Center in Gravenhurst opened in 1963, designed to provide relief capacity for the growing numbers of residents at the Huronia Regional Center in Orillia. Provided residential services primarily for females, infants, adolescents, and adults. Closed in 1994. So if it is closed, I don't know how we're going to get in. Are you in that area? Because have you heard any of the stories of what's going on there? Muskoka Sanitarium was a POW camp in a mental hospital. Very haunted OPP train there with K9. And none will enter the building due to strange things. Well, I would definitely enter that building. Need to get permission, though. Probably have to get permission from the town. But that would be an interesting place to check out.
Yeah, it sounds like I know there's a lot of institutions like that seem to be very active.
Mm-hmm. And while we're actually on that topic, Alex, I have the opportunity to be an expert on a show called Haunted Hospitals, and it's season 2. I was the expert for season 1, but they ran out of they didn't have enough shows to put in the pilot, but they want to bring me back for the second. So, if you know anybody, or yourself included, that works in that hospital. And has some stories to share, send me a message, because they may be able to get some screen time and get on TV for that, and then I'll be able to comment on that as an expert. So he continues to say, the property has been used since the 1800s resort that burned, then turned into tuberculosis hospice, then a POW, and a mental hospital. I live 3 doors down up from the 50-acre property. So my question is, does anybody live there, or does anybody own it right now? Like, could you go over there and knock on the door and say, and get a property owner and a phone number or something like that, that I could make a phone call and make an arrangement or something like that?
Also bringing, actually, Michael Smith, the co-host from the Night Stalkers, is also on the chat with us, and I've actually brought him in on the actual. I don't know if he looks like he's got his microphone muted, but brought him in on this too because this is something that he may actually have a little, especially dealing with haunted hospitals. Period. And when we brought up this subject, it was the first on my mind because he actually investigated an entire hospital where he worked as a cardiac monitor in an ICU unit.
Okay.
And I thought this might be something he might have a little, with some of the stuff that's going on there, and of course the different stories. I thought that might be something interesting, and he might have a little extra he could add in on that as well.
All right, let's hear
it. We were just getting, or Ryan was just answering some questions about a hospital in Ontario, I would assume. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, and as I say that, Alex answers it. It's owned actually by the government of Ontario, and it's up for sale for only $70 million.
Only
a bargain.
Yeah, that is certainly a bargain at only $70 million. Of course, if you're thinking of like if you do it kind of like the Airbnb when we saw earlier, renting it out for $125 a night. I mean, that's probably not a bad investment, because you got to imagine if from reading his what he was telling about being a POW camp and a mental hospital and all of that, it's got to have a pretty good reputation where you're at, and probably further than that. I mean, I'm not Canadian, so I kind of heard of it, but wasn't sure.
Is there any trespassing signs there, Alex? Anything that says, don't be here?
I would say with it,
has it been condemned?
He says it's been gated off. So I would think at the minimum there's no trespassing.
Yeah.
And he does say that there are a lot of urban explorers that go through there every day. But yes, there are signs posted.
Yeah, okay. So we definitely would have to get permission from the town. That might be a little difficult.
And there may also probably be insurance stipulations for letting people in the building since it's vacant. Mm-hmm. If anyone got injured or something like that, they may have something that precludes it because of that by itself. You know, because if you fell and got hurt, you'd have to sign a waiver probably or something saying that if you fell and got hurt, that you wouldn't hold somebody liable, the owner or whoever.
No, it's owned by the Ontario government, so it would be easy. You wouldn't hold.
You have to hold so that you wouldn't hold the government responsible. But most hospitals, though, and in fact, every one that I've ever known of has had some kind of activity. And matter of fact, I actually saw two full-bodied apparitions, one in each hospital. But the other hospital that I was affiliated with, they had what they called her the Pink Lady, and she was just an old lady dressed in pink, and she would be seen right before someone passed. They'd see her go into a room, and then she'd come out of the room, and then the person would die shortly thereafter. And there was not a real person, obviously, but they have strict controls on, she was seen middle of the night, daytime, didn't matter. So, I mean, in the hospital I worked at was actually new. I started there when it was only 7 months old. And there was activity in that hospital pretty much from the word go.
So it's interesting, too, because, death happens there, right? So, a lot of, and you got the morgue. So if we believe in the theory of us having a soul and consciousness and energy and whatnot, where's it go, right? Well, it's going to be trapped. It's going to go to the next source of energy or conduit or whatever. Right? So it would make sense that hospitals are haunted because there's birth and there's death and, everything,
suffering, all that stuff, all the emotions, all that stuff going on.
I want to say first hello to Nancy. Thanks for joining us. She was one of them I saw in the Facebook feed.
Hello, Nancy.
And also point out that Alex said that he would bet that every week at least 30 to 50 people go through the hospital. So he does know that there was a paranormal show done there a few years ago, but they never finished filming, and it never aired due to the activity level. And I don't know if there was any kind of burial ground there, Nancy. It was started out as a tuberculosis hospital, then went to a mental institution, or a POW camp, then a mental institution. And it just seems to have a lot of negative energy, I guess you would say, attached to it.
Alex, would you know if there's any ties to MK Ultra? Possibly, with all those weird things going on in hospitals? If there's a delay.
Yeah, well, it's what I heard from the old staff. The property was closed, has close to 1,000 deaths over the past 100 years from tuberculosis to suicide. The building even needed to install suicide wire fencing along the roof.
Are you able to get me in contact with the old staff?
Yeah, he says he sure he can.
All right, send them my way. Tell them to give me a call or give me an email. Get them to email me or something, and then I'll see if I can make it happen. Because it's not too far from here. I mean, I know there's trespassing signs. I mean, I got a lot to lose if I do get a freaking fine. So. I mean, as much as I'd like to just ignore the sign, I got to be smart about it. So I can at least ask, or I can, and I can always use my private investigating card and say, hey, I'm investigating just the building for asbestos or something stupid. I don't know. Let me in.
And also, we want to point out that no one should investigate anywhere that has no trespassing signs up, because a lot of the time the buildings are unsafe to enter. And if you don't know what you're looking for, a solid-looking step can turn into a collapsing staircase literally in a split second.
Which is always good to get consent or permission from the town. Like it's like when I do private investigating, if I'm doing surveillance in a certain area, I'm actually required to let the police know. That way, if someone calls and says, "Hey, there's a strange person watching me outside," they know about it, and I don't get charged or arrested. So, like, it's actually a good idea to call. So that's what I'm going to do. So if you get me connected, I just need permission. I need a form signed. If somebody's willing to sign the form and take responsibility of it, I use what's called color of right. As far as I know, you're the property owner. Done my due diligence. We show up, you lead us in. Everything else falls on that person. So I just need someone to, take credibility here. And then,
well, Alex said that most of the older generation in this town did work there at some point. And he also said that he does know the lady that does security there. She, I guess, also works at the Ontario Fire College.
Okay. Well, maybe one day when they're working shift there to get us on board, get us in there.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it would be an awesome investigation.
Mm-hmm.
You happen to know when did the hospital close?
Actually, I believe
1994 is what it said on the website there. Mm-hmm.
So he said it was an active area for close to 100 years. Between like I said, I think it went tuberculosis, then POW, then mental institution.
Yeah, well, with all those things going on, I would have been surprised if it wasn't active, actually.
Yeah.
Because, and even with tuberculosis, I don't know how it was up there, but a lot of the tuberculosis hospitals down here, the ones that were open back during the day when that was a rampant thing, even the staff lived there because they couldn't leave.
No, they were all under quarantine.
Because they had all been exposed to the tuberculosis, and even after they died, a lot of the burial ground was right on hospital property. At least the hospitals are down here, So I don't know. There may be a burial ground or even unmarked graves, which wasn't uncommon for that time, especially if they had a high number of deaths. So that's always a possibility.
Now, what kind of paranormal activity are we talking about? Are we talking apparitions? Are we talking noises, poltergeists? What kind of things should one be prepared for? Because I'm actually in the middle of preparing. Basically, once I get more reports in and I'm able to do a comparison, I want to do a bunch of live fact checking. Like if I can get. Like, for an example, a lot of people condemn the fact or worry about the fact that a Ouija board shouldn't be messed with and blah, 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 and all these other things. I've always had this idea to kind of read the rules of the Ouija board, take it out of the box, right, and then do exactly what I'm not supposed to do, and then be like, see what happens. But I'm not allowed to do that in the house.
Well, actually, funny enough, one of the first live streams that I did with PNBC is exactly that. We got a Ouija board. It was actually loaned to us by the president of the Vancouver Paranormal Society, Pete Wren. We took it out of the box, set it up, and gotten a lot of crap because the actual instructions on the game made me laugh so hard I couldn't keep it straight. I could not get back into research mode, I guess you'd say. Because first off, it basically tells you on the instructions that it's your subconscious moving the board. It's nothing about spirits. And secondly, it says it is supposed to be played in close quarters, laid on the laps of two people, a lady and gentleman preferred, This is its wording.
Yin and yang, right?
Yeah, it's
Probably.
like, it's a parlor game made to try to get some guy lucky, I think. you know,
Okay. You know,
Spin the bottle.
yeah,
Right? Then
kind of
you
like
take the
that.
bottle and then you spin it. Yeah.
And the other thing, the big one, and this is one I've been trying to work at getting out on the internet. Everyone talks about how, the Ouija board named itself, and it means it. No, it didn't. The person that came up named it, and it's actually French and German. Ouija. Yes, yes. So its actual English name is the Yes Yes board.
Yes, yes.
Oui, French for yes. Ja, German for
German.
yes. So it's actually the Yes Yes board.
well, that's kind of like it is with tarot cards. You know, tarot cards actually are a card game, an actual card game designed to be played by 4 people, kind of like spades. They didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't have an occult reference until far later. Aleister Crowley actually made his own deck, and he sold them. He had a limited number, and he sold the decks for, back at the time, what would have been a good chunk of money for a deck of cards. And then after that, there were many decks that were done. You know, and some of the decks are beautiful decks. Like we've got a Salvador Dali deck. You know, which is Salvador Dali art on a deck of tarot cards. And the artwork, of course, is beautiful, but look who did it. You know, there's all kind of decks, but it was actually, and still in many parts of the world, still played as a card game. You know, so people say, the tarot cards are evil. Well, the tarot cards have been in use as a card game for so long back that I can't even tell you when they've been started.
Mm-hmm. What was the original design, though? What was the original purpose?
Playing cards. There were trumps, and it was just a playing card deck, just like a regular deck.
My grandmother used to actually read just regular playing cards. She didn't use tarot cards. She used to read just plain playing cards.
Well, a lot of them. I live in the South, you know, and a lot of the what do they call them now? The spiritual advisors or whatever. They don't use tarot cards. They use, like your grandma, they use playing cards. I don't know what into one, but they use a regular deck of playing cards for tarot and read the cards that way. And you know, I mean, there's a lot to it, but a lot of it's what people put into it. A lot of it really has no occult connotation much at all. It's kind of what you put your own spin on it, and you get whatever you want out of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like a Ouija board,
kind of like a zodiac or something, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you put a lot of, I read my horoscope sometimes just for the hell of it, you know, but I don't put a lot of faith in it. It's like reading a fortune cookie after you have a Chinese dinner. You know, I mean, if you think that it's something that's viable, but to let your fate rest in the deck of cards, you know, actually it's kind of funny because it negates your free will, because you got to remember that every choice you make leads to something else. Nothing can be foretold.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I mean, you wake up in the morning, you come out of your bedroom, you turn left or you turn right. Whatever you're doing, then you do something else, and you decide, I need to do this now, so there's something else, and you do that. And there's no way that a deck of cards can predict every decision that you make and every outcome in the course of a day, because the outcomes are endless. You know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, we also we got some more information on, Alex said in 1994 they moved the last of the mental patients out. Then they turned it into a assistant op training, I guess a CIS and op training grounds for a few years. They did use the buildings, but after a short time, they stopped going into due to activity. There are some unmarked graves. Nancy said that would sound plausible. They would be present. Also, Alex said apparitions. I think mostly people standing in the windows seen from people outside. Two things from across from room to room in the hallway, in front of the urban explorers, and the odd account of things being thrown at the explorers. Nancy's also questioning on it. So as she says that the property has, I would assume has 5 buildings, I believe: the hospital, doctor's house, nurse's building, and residence. YouTube has videos of the explorers actually, from explorers going through it. Apparently at the Muskogee Center and Muskogee Sanitarium. So apparently some of the explorers that go through there have actually taken film and put it up on YouTube.
Interesting. The interest, well, it's hard, right? Like, I need to look at this stuff I'm trying to understand it too, right? Okay, so I've never really experienced any paranormal activity. I just love the fact that everyone talks about it. But what I want to do is I want to do a research. If I find a place and I get permission, for example, let's look at the lead that I'm following right now, and that's with that house that I showed in the video.
Oh yeah.
If they give me the okay, then I'm going to do a background check, a history check. I'm going to go and talk to everyone I'm going to do a full-blown investigation beforehand. And then I'm going to interview everyone. I'm going to record everything, get whatever information I can. Pretty well seal that in a Ziploc bag. Don't tell anybody about it. I'm not going to post it online or anything. And then I'm going to send, some people in who are intuitive and, and see, guide me, go to these rooms. Like, I'm going to know before I go in there where the alleged hot spots are. And send somebody in who has this gift as a third party, I guess, without any information whatsoever, and see if they can pinpoint or at least go to the same area, right? And then measure it from there. Because how else? And then once we're able to do that, once I understand what the phenomenon is, and we have to set up some experiments to try and capture information, right, to record. So I have to have a full understanding of the type of activity, the time, the place, the weather conditions, everything, so we can go there and recreate the environment. Which is that's the tricky thing with paranormal activity is we don't know if it's intelligent. That's another thing too. How do you prove that the energy is intelligent?
Yeah.
Right. It could be radio waves. It could be sound waves, microwaves. It could be just space and time continuum for all we know. And that is a challenge.
And it could be both. You could have residual and intelligent. So, and because you're dealing with 3 different levels of time between the tuberculosis hospital, POW camp, and and a psych hospital, you may have elements of all 3 of those things together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's something that you have to take into account, because there's a lot of times that people assume you go into I did an investigation not very long ago at a house that's relatively new. I think the lady said it's I think she said it was 15 years old. Everyone assumes, it's a new house. How could it be haunted? Well, just because the building is new, it doesn't, there could be an item with something attached to it. There could be something in the land. Another place here in Terrace, actually one of the neater places we've investigated here in Terrace, it actually, it's the Terrace Heritage Park now. What they did is basically they brought in a bunch of cabins from the surrounding area that had been overgrown and just abandoned or whatever, or they were, the historic kind of the pioneer cabins, brought them into this in the city of Terrace, this huge area of land. Well, a lot of people don't realize that this huge area of land that's got all of these neat cabins and everything that they're walking on actually has a much larger historic value. It was also a hospital at one time during World War II and a training ground at World War II, a military base, and also is the site of the largest military mutiny in Canadian history. People walk around through the ground have no clue any of that ever happened there. It's not mentioned in any of the stuff because it has nothing to do with the cabins that are sitting there now.
Right.
You know, we look at a haunting kind of like it's kind of like an archaeological dig. If you think about it, you dig down, and through the more layers of earth you go through, the more things you find, the older they are.
And I'm still waiting to see my damn ghost dinosaur.
I know, I haven't figured that out yet. You'd think if the rules held true, that you'd have a ghost T-Rex floating around somewhere. I don't know.
So like with the reports, so I got only 3 HSPD, High Strangeness Paranormal database reports that came in, which was good. And I have to do my due diligence and investigate these the way that I want to do them. Once I get trends and I get enough, pictures and shit like that, like what I'm going to end up doing is comparing, right? So once I get more paranormal reports, that's another thing too, Alex, if you could go to the reporting database and make individual reports on these individual items, but they got to come from the original witness if you can track them down. That way I can add them to the database, I can add them to the survey, and I can mark and analyze the trends, because what I'm doing right now is collecting my baseline. And once I get another report from a third party or another party that I know lives on the other side of the world, or another another area, and they're explaining the same thing based on the parameters within the database, then I'm able to make a hypothesis. And then once I make that hypothesis based on all that evidence, then I'm going to go. That'll determine, where I go do an investigation. As much as I'd love to just blindly go into the Muskoka Center, or even the Beck House, I do want to collect the data first, right? So that way, when I go there, I know exactly what room I need to be in. I know exactly what type of haunting, what type of activity I'm looking to encounter, so I can recreate, so I can bring the right equipment. I got a good 6 grand worth of equipment here that I could use, but I'm not going to bring it all, right? I'm going to bring what I need. So the best thing that anybody could do is just make a report, and then I'll get to work. But everything else is just theory, and it's speculation, and it's neat, and it's cool. But and the hard thing about paranormal is it's because it's so loose-ended like that, it's hard to be taken serious. So my aim here is to take a serious approach, and in order to do that, I need people piping up and identifying themselves and standing up and saying, hey, my name is this, and I saw this, and I'm not crazy, right?
Absolutely. So, anything else you want to throw in for tonight?
No, I am exhausted. So if anyone else wants to ask one more question, I'll take it. If not, I would like to go to bed.
Actually, Nancy does. She says she'll take your equipment.
Yeah, she'll take it?
Yeah, she'll take it. And also, Alex wanted to point out that it could be, a ghost T-Rex could be in the form of SO fuel, or I guess exhaust. Maybe that's what we're getting the ghost T-Rexes from. And he also says that he thinks there is a, I think there is a history info presentation at the Opera House regarding the Muskogee Center coming up?
We actually investigated the Opera House, the Gravenhurst Opera House. Actually, shit, let me go back to my office. I think I have a news article. You guys can do some research.
And John is actually saying that you got the drive, keep up the hunt.
Thank you, John. I'm only as good as my team, though, and I'm only as good as the data. So, please, I can't do anything if I don't have the research. And what's important is, when people, another thing too, it doesn't matter who it is. If somebody's willing to put it on record, then that's a solid piece of evidence. That's evidence, right? All I'm doing is stacking the evidence. And then if I'm able to go to a controlled or a high probable location per se and actually capture something, then that increases the odds. That's the plan, right? There's energy everywhere. I could do a seance right here and probably collect something, right? But I mean, where's the backstory? Where's the report? Where's the surveillance, right? And that's the goal. So the Opera House is it?
He also is saying that the operating rooms are still intact to drainage beds from autopsies. The underground tunnels are still intact, from what I know. Alex is saying, and well, Nancy, I was trying to help you out. Figured, hey, you might like the equipment too. If Ryan was going to share. I know how expensive equipment is.
So we did go into the Muskogee Foundry. That's another place we did check. So I'm going to leave you guys with some research, and then I'm heading to bed. But if you actually check the Gravenhurst banner online, or the Examiner banner, the Examiner banner, and you look up Thursday, March 2nd, 2017, there'll be an article in there, and there's a picture of me and my wife there investigating the foundry. And then there's another article in, I think it's the Riley Opera House. It's the one we went to, Thursday, February 2nd, 2017, Gravenhurst banner. So just fact check that stuff out. And then thank you for chatting, and I got to go, guys. I'm pooped. I'm tired.
All right. Well, then.
Good night.
For Ryan and Michael joining us, I am Joel Walling, going to be signing off. And thanks everyone for listening. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and definitely for keeping the chat room hopping tonight. Hope you have a great weekend, and we will see you again next week.
Every day we see, hear, and experience strange and unusual things. We have asked, we have begged, we have cried for answers from our governments to reveal, acknowledge, and confirm that we're not alone. We need to change our perspective on disclosure. We need to rise and stand tall. We need to stop asking and start acting. We know that you know, and that you won't tell us. So join me next week as we continue to search, as we continue to share, as we continue to grow. We're in this together, and you're not alone. We know you know. Thanks for looking up, everybody. Keep your eyes in the sky and heed the world.